Hello, everybody, and welcome to History/Law Bite number 201, dated March the 1st, 2021. I'm Walter, your mobile historian and blue-collar scholar. This History/Law Bite is entitled Worcester versus Georgia, 31 U.S. 515, 1832. Worcester versus Georgia was a very significant landmark, in fact, U.S. Supreme Court decision that dealt with the territorial sovereignty of Native American nations versus a state attempt to undermine that sovereignty. Specifically, in Worcester versus Georgia, we see Sam Worcester and several other missionaries living on Cherokee land in the state of Georgia. In addition to their missionary work, they were also teaching the Cherokee how to resist the state of Georgia in its attempts to take their land, as well as how to resist the state from imposing laws upon their sovereign territory. Okay? Now, the state of Georgia was not unaware of what the missionaries were doing, and as such, they enacted a law in 1830 that prohibited any white settlement on Cherokee territory within the state unless those individuals had a license and had sworn an oath of loyalty to the state of Georgia. Okay? Sam Worcester and his missionaries had neither a license nor did they take an oath of loyalty to the state, and they refused to obtain a license and take that oath of loyalty. Now, I'll add before I go any further that Worcester and his missionaries were on Cherokee territory per the invitation of the Cherokee, all right? In addition, he was working under the authority of the federal government, all right? So because Worcester and his missionaries refused to comply with the laws of the state of Georgia, they were arrested, tried, and sentenced to 4 years in prison, all right? Worcester appealed his conviction to the Supreme Court of the United States, making the following arguments. First and foremost, that Georgia's law violated the U.S. Constitution, that it violated existing treaties between the federal government and the Cherokee, and that it violated an 1802 Act of Congress, all right? The state of Georgia, which didn't feel that the U.S. Supreme Court had any jurisdiction over the suit, declined to send anyone to represent them in this case. So the justices were faced with the issue of whether or not a state could pass laws affecting the territorial sovereignty of Native American nations within their borders, all right? And in a 5-1 U.S. Supreme Court decision authored by none other than Chief Justice John Marshall, the Supreme Court ruled that a state had no such authority. Indeed, the Supreme Court ruled Georgia's law to be entirely unconstitutional, that it violated the U.S. Constitution, treaties, and laws of the United States of America. Native American territory within the boundaries of a U.S. state was totally separated from those states, all right? And any interaction and regulation of, persons between the Native American states and the people of those states, or anywhere else as a matter of fact, was to be conducted by the federal government. The states themselves could not enact laws regulating interaction between the Native Americans and the citizens of their state, all right? The Cherokee Nation was a distinct entity, and the laws of the state of Georgia had no force on Cherokee territory. End of story. Bottom line. The Constitution clearly gave the federal government the sole power in dealing with and regulating Native American nations. Remember, they were essentially wards of the U.S. federal government, all right? Dependent political entities on the U.S. government, all right? And since Georgia's law interfered with the sovereignty of the Cherokee and existing laws and treaties that existed between the Cherokee and the federal government, Georgia's law was unconstitutional. It interfered with that constitutionally protected power, that exclusive power that the federal government had to deal with the Native American nations. And thus, Georgia was out of line. Okay? Justice Henry Baldwin wrote a dissenting opinion in this case, disagreeing with Marshall on the merits and for other procedural reasons as well. Okay? So thus, Worcester prevailed. However, the state of Georgia initially refused to cooperate with the ruling, and Worcester would not be released from prison until 1833. All right? I'll add for the record that the effects of this decision were as follows. Federal government did absolutely nothing to enforce the court's mandate here, okay? And that, with that in mind, as you would expect, there was continued infringement of the sovereignty of Native American nations, all right? The height of this was reached in 1838 when the federal government began full enforcement of the Indian Removal Act of 1830, okay? As a result of this terrible, most dreadful act, some 15,000 Cherokee Native Americans were moved westward forcefully, all right? And it is estimated that some 4,000 at least died along the way. This horrifying event was known, of course, as the Trail of Tears, all right? This case is a significant one with respect to the sovereignty of Native American nations versus the individual U.S. states, all right? And it is a decision that greatly influenced laws regarding Native American nations for many years to come, all right? So that is Worcester versus Georgia, 31 U.S. 515, 1832. Thank you so much for listening to this History/Law Bite. I hope you gained a thing or two from it. You know, it's a very interesting case, a case that certainly was decided in favor of the rights of the Native American nation known as the Cherokee, all right, and their tribal sovereignty against the actions of the state of Georgia, okay? So, with that in mind, if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, I humbly ask that you do so. Please just hit that little red subscribe button right there, and we're in business. If you would like to donate to my channel financially, links are posted on the main page, of course. Your support is appreciated more than you will ever know. Take care, stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you at the next bite. Peace.